The 1970s was a turbulent decade, marked by Cold War tensions and rising terrorism. On July 4, 1976, a group of Palestinian and German terrorists hijacked Air France Flight 139, taking over 250 passengers and crew hostage. Their demands were clear: the release of Palestinian militants imprisoned in Israel and other countries. The hijackers forced the plane to land in Entebbe, Uganda, then ruled by the dictator Idi Amin, who offered them safe haven. The hijacking of Flight 139 sent shockwaves across the globe. For Israel, the stakes were particularly high. The hostages included many Israeli citizens, and the hijacking was a direct attack on their nation's security. The Entebbe raid, a daring rescue operation launched by the Israeli Defense Forces, would become a defining moment in the fight against terrorism. Air France Flight 139 began like any other, a routine journey from Tel Aviv to Paris, with a stopover in Athens. As the plane took off from Athens, 4 terrorists, 2 Palestinian and 2 German, stormed the cockpit, their weapons brandished menacingly. The hijackers, members of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine and the German revolutionary cells, had meticulously planned their operation. Under the watchful eyes of the terrified passengers and crew, the hijackers redirected the plane southward towards the unknown. Fear and uncertainty gripped the hostages as they were herded to the back of the plane. After hours of tense flight, the plane touched down in Entebbe, Uganda. The arrival in Entebbe marked the beginning of a harrowing week-long ordeal. The old terminal building at Entebbe Airport became a prison for the hostages. Guarded by their heavily armed captors, they endured days of stifling heat, meager rations, and the constant threat of violence. Amidst the terror, the hostages found strength in their shared plight. They formed bonds of friendship and support, sharing what little food and water they had. The hijackers, seeking to exploit divisions within their captive audience, separated Israeli passengers from the rest. Inside the terminal building, the hostages clung to hope, unaware that a daring rescue mission was being planned thousands of miles away. The Israeli government, facing an agonizing dilemma, refused to negotiate with terrorists. Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and Defense Minister Shimon Peres authorized the planning of a daring rescue operation, codenamed Operation Thunderbolt. The Israeli military, renowned for its prowess and ingenuity, rose to the challenge. Led by Brigadier General Dan Shomron, a team of elite commandos from the Israeli Defense Forces, Sayeret Matkal, began meticulously planning every detail of the operation. Time was of the essence, and the logistical hurdles were immense. The rescue team would have to fly over 4,000 kilometers, refueling in mid-air, and maintain absolute secrecy to avoid detection. With each passing hour, the pressure mounted on the Israeli government and the rescue team. On the night of July 3, 1976, under the cover of darkness, 4 Israeli C-130 Hercules transport planes carrying the assault team and support personnel took off from Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Their destination, Entebbe Airport, Uganda, over 2,500 miles away. The planes flew low, hugging the terrain to avoid radar detection. The commandos, their faces grim, checked and rechecked their weapons and equipment. After hours of flying over hostile territory, the Israeli planes approached Entebbe Airport. The first plane, carrying a black Mercedes limousine and several Land Rovers designed to mimic Ugandan President Idi Amin's motorcade, touched down on the runway just after midnight. As the lead vehicles approached the terminal building, the commandos, dressed in dark uniforms and armed with silenced weapons, fanned out. The stage was set for a confrontation that would captivate the world. The commandos stormed the terminal building with lightning speed and overwhelming force. Startled by the sudden assault, the terrorists and Ugandan soldiers guarding the building were caught off guard. Gunfire erupted, shattering the stillness of the night. Shouts of, "This is a rescue mission, get down!" echoed through the terminal building in Hebrew and English. Many of the hostages, initially confused and disoriented, mistook the commandos for terrorists. The commandos, operating with surgical precision, moved through the building, neutralizing the terrorists one by one. Outside, the battle raged on as Israeli commandos engaged Ugandan soldiers. Explosions rocked the airfield as Israeli forces destroyed Ugandan MiG fighter jets parked nearby. Within minutes, the terminal building was secured, the terrorists either dead or captured. As dawn broke over Entebbe airport, the Israeli C-130 Hercules transport planes, carrying the rescued hostages and the bodies of their fallen comrades, lifted off into the African sky. Operation Thunderbolt, a mission deemed impossible by many, had been a resounding success. Of the 106 hostages held by the terrorists, 102 were rescued. 3 hostages lost their lives during the raid. The joy of victory was tempered by the bitter sting of loss. The commander of the assault team, Lieutenant Colonel Yonatan Netanyahu, was killed during the operation. His death cast a pall over the otherwise triumphant return home. The rescued hostages, their faces etched with a mix of relief, disbelief and grief, were greeted as heroes upon their arrival in Israel. The Entebbe raid, a daring mission executed with remarkable precision and courage, captured the world's imagination. The Entebbe raid sent shockwaves throughout the world, shattering the myth of terrorist impunity. The raid was met with a mix of condemnation and praise from the international community. Arab nations and the Soviet Union condemned the raid as a violation of Ugandan sovereignty. Western nations, led by the United States, expressed support for Israel's right to defend its citizens from terrorism. The raid was seen as a turning point in the fight against terrorism. The United States, in particular, drew inspiration from the Entebbe raid, which influenced the development of its own counter-terrorism capabilities. Security measures at airports around the world were significantly enhanced in the wake of Entebbe. The Entebbe raid marked a turning point in the fight against terrorism. The Entebbe raid provided valuable lessons for the international community in combating terrorism. The raid highlighted the importance of intelligence gathering, planning, and coordination in responding to terrorist incidents. Israel's success was due in large part to its meticulous planning and swift execution. The raid also underscored the need for specialized counter-terrorism units. The lessons learned from Entebbe continue to shape counter-terrorism strategies today. The raid serves as a reminder that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, courage and determination can prevail over terror. The Entebbe raid, though a historical event, continues to resonate deeply in the hearts and minds of people around the world. For Israelis, the raid is a source of immense national pride. The raid is commemorated annually in Israel, with ceremonies held at the graves of the fallen commandos and at a memorial site at Ben Gurion Airport. For the hostages who endured the harrowing ordeal at Entebbe, the raid is a bittersweet memory. The Entebbe raid also holds a special place in the history of counterterrorism. The tactics and strategies employed by the Israeli commandos have influenced counterterrorism training and operations globally. The raid serves as a powerful reminder of the human cost of terrorism. Today, Entebbe Airport stands as a symbol of both the horrors of terrorism and the triumph of the human spirit. The old terminal building where the hostages were held is gone, replaced by a modern airport. However, the memory of the Entebbe raid lives on. The Entebbe raid serves as a powerful reminder that terrorism is a global threat that requires a global response. The international community must continue to work together to combat terrorism. The Entebbe raid also teaches us that even in the darkest of times, hope and courage can prevail. We must never forget the sacrifices made by those who fought against terrorism.